Commander Jake Reeves stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic station, staring at the swirling nebula beyond the reinforced viewport. The peace talks had stalled for the third day in a row, and humanity's first contact with the Valoran Empire was teetering on the edge of collapse. Stupid, arrogant, pointy-eared bureaucrats, Jake muttered under his breath, running a hand through his graying hair. Think they're so superior because they mastered faster-than-light travel 1,000 years before we figured out the combustion engine. He kicked at the deck plating in frustration. And here I am, humanity's best diplomat, when I can barely keep my mouth shut in a negotiation. He turned away from the window, pacing the empty corridor. The Velerans had demanded Earth surrender its outer colonies as a gesture of goodwill before any trade agreements could be established. It was extortion dressed in diplomatic language, and everyone knew it. If only they could understand. Jake continued his solitary rant, his voice echoing off the metal walls. Humans don't roll over. We didn't claw our way up from caves and through 2 world wars just to hand over everything we've built to the first aliens who show up with bigger guns. He laughed bitterly. But no, I have to smile and nod and pretend their generous offer isn't complete garbage. Your internal voice is quite loud for thoughts that are supposed to be private. Jake spun around, his heart hammering. Ambassador Lyria stood in the corridor junction, her silver skin catching the station's artificial light. She was tall and elegant, with those characteristic pointed ears that had earned the Valorans Jake's private nickname. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in her violet eyes. Amusement, perhaps. Jake started, his mind racing through damage control protocols. Talking to yourself, Lyria finished, taking a graceful step forward. Yes, I heard it all. Jake's stomach dropped. In 3 days of negotiations, he'd maintained perfect diplomatic composure. Now, in one careless moment, he'd likely destroyed any chance of peace. Ambassador, I apologize. That was unprofessional, and Lyria held up a 3-fingered hand. You called us stupid, arrogant, pointy-eared bureaucrats. The corners of her mouth twitched. The description is more accurate than you know. Jake blinked. I'm sorry? Commander Reeves, do you know why the Valoran Empire has lasted for 3,000 years? She didn't wait for an answer. Because we've become very good at talking, at diplomacy, at wrapping threats in silk and calling them opportunities. She moved closer, her robes whispering against the deck. We've become so good at it that we've forgotten what it's like to be direct. To be honest. I don't understand, Jake said carefully. Lyria's smile grew. Your species fascinates us, Commander. You lie terribly. Your emotions bleed through every word, every gesture. In 3 days of negotiations, I've watched you struggle to contain what you really think. She gestured toward the window. But just now, talking to yourself, I finally heard the truth. Not from a diplomat, from a human being. Jake remained silent, unsure where this was going. You said humans don't roll over, Lyria continued. That you clawed your way up through adversity. This is what my government needed to hear, but they were too proud to ask directly. She pulled a small data crystal from her robes. The colonial demand was a test, Commander. A cruel one, I'll admit. We needed to know if humanity would fight or fold. A test? Jake felt anger rising. You risked war as a test? Yes, Lyria said simply. And you just passed. Your private thoughts showed more courage than any negotiating position ever could. She held out the crystal. These are our real terms. Fair trade, mutual defense, cultural exchange, everything your people deserve as equals. Jake took the crystal, his hand shaking slightly. Why tell me this? Why the games? Lyria's expression softened. Because the universe is filled with predators, Commander. Species that see kindness as weakness. My people needed to know that humans had teeth, that you would bear them when pushed. She turned toward the window, looking out at the stars. We've been watching your world for 2 centuries. We watched you split the atom, reach your moon, nearly destroy yourselves a dozen times. Every time you chose to survive, to adapt, to push forward. You were waiting for us, Jake realized. We were waiting for someone like us, Lyria corrected. The galaxy needs more stubborn species who refuse to quit, who talk to themselves in empty corridors and dare to call their problems by their real names. She looked back at him. Your brutal honesty, even when you think no one is listening, that's what gives us hope. Jake laughed, a genuine sound that surprised them both. So humanity's greatest diplomatic asset is that we can't keep our mouths shut? Precisely, Lyria said, and now she was definitely smiling. My people have recorded every human broadcast that's leaked into space for the past 100 years. Your music, your stories, your arguments, all of it screaming into the void with no thought for who might be listening. It's chaotic and messy and completely authentic. She extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. That authenticity will serve you well among the stars. Jake shook her hand, feeling the weight of the moment. What happens now? Now we return to the negotiating table, Lyria said. But this time, Commander Reeves, I want you to speak the way you did in this corridor. Tell my delegation exactly what you think. No more diplomatic dancing. They won't like it, Jake warned. Lyria's smile turned predatory. No, they won't, but they'll respect it. And more importantly, they'll remember that humanity doesn't negotiate from fear. She started walking toward the conference room, then paused. Oh, and Commander? We're not pointy-eared. The proper term is acoustically enhanced. Jake stared at her, retreating back, then burst out laughing. Maybe humanity's place in the galaxy wouldn't be so bad after all, especially if they could be themselves. As he followed Lyria down the corridor, Jake couldn't help but mutter, acoustically enhanced. That's exactly what a pointy-eared alien would say. Behind him, Lyria's laughter echoed through the station, warm and genuine and entirely unexpected.